Okay, hi everybody. My name is Jake. I know some of you here. I'm an instructional technologist in academic services for UW Information Technology. Small disclaimer, I'm not a professional ServiceNow trainer. I'm one of you. But if anytime you have questions about the platform, I'll do my best to answer them. And I'll be talking about a lot of stuff today. If I do something wrong, I lose you, I misclick or misspeak, please stop me, raise your hand. Please don't suffer in silence. Okay? If you get hung up on something, please stop me. Is everyone able to log in their computers and get a browser up and running to uweval.service-now.com? I'll make a small note. We're going to be playing around in eval today. No emails will be sent out, so it's a nice, safe place to experiment. Once we're in production, you still can come back here and practice in eval. So if you want to try something complicated, you don't want to practice in front of a live audience, much like I often do, you can come back here and experiment at any time. We'll talk a little bit about what I hope to accomplish today. I'm going to start off with some slides and talk about some concepts and terminology just to make sure we're all on the same page. We'll go into what is called the new call module to learn how to do quick customer data capture. Learn a little bit about service offerings and groups within the system. Get an introduction to filters and how the system works, and then we'll take a break. At that time, after about 50 minutes or so, people are usually pretty tired. We'll give you a 10-minute break. You can also ask more advanced questions at that time if they weren't answered during the session. We'll then go into requests and incidents and work that for about an hour and take a break. And then we'll go into some fun stuff at the end as well. So just want you to know that every hour you can at least get out of here. We have caffeine that direction and bathrooms that direction. That sound okay? Okay, I want to start off with some service management key principles. I apologize, my PowerPoint is off the screen, so the top's actually on the bottom here. I'm not sure why, but it might actually be better for you because it's hard to see the bottom and the back anyway, and so I can assure you you're not going to miss a whole lot. One of our goals with this project is to literally transform how we manage our services, and I wanted to point out that I hear people saying that we're striving to align our work with the business needs, and I always thought that was management speak. We will literally be doing that here. We're going to be working with records, and we're going to be aligning them with service offerings for metrics. So just keep that in mind as we're going through the system, and that's why we're doing it. How many people have had ITIL training, ITIL foundations? That's great. A lot of us have had that. There's also roles for campus governance and other folks who are actually process owners or managers throughout the system. So what does that mean for us today? We're going to be cutting over from RT. Some people have actually begun using ServiceNow today. You might catch me saying the term ServiceNow and UW Connect interchangeably. I apologize for that. I'm instructed to use UW Connect, but I forget. It's the ServiceNow platform. So it's a platform as a service that we're going through that company, and we've branded it UW Connect for our purposes. One of our goals also is to be more transparent with our customers, and I hope you see that when we talk a little bit about the communication, the workflows, and the communication options with our customers. Our goal really is to be more transparent. Let's start off with a little bit of terminology. Right now, when anything comes in the door, we call it a ticket in RT. How many people are experienced RT users? So most people, I'll use some RT examples and analogies. I hope that's okay. What we're being asked to do now is classify things as either a request or an incident. So a request would be a standard service or general assistance, contacting help at you. Could be, I need a computer or I need help logging in. An incident would be an unplanned interruption to a service. No internet. That's an incident. Wanted to point out that you might have someone who calls in and needs help logging in. They might need a password reset or something like that. That would be a standard service request. You might discover, though, in the course of your investigation that there's a problem with a server, and that's why they can't log in. That standard service request would then be converted to an incident, and you would work it as such. Does that make sense? So everything's going to come in the front door as a request. It may be converted to incidents as needed. In the last part of this session, we're going to talk a little bit about problems. How many people are familiar with problems? And not just creating problems. Good. So a problem is going to be the root cause of an incident. And the goal of incident management is to restore service as quickly as possible. Let's get the internets back up and running. What you can do, though, is take that information from an incident and create a separate problem record, and that can persist. It might take you weeks, months, or years to understand the root cause of a problem, but we can restore service as quickly as possible, have the problem live on. That make sense? We'll talk a little bit about that workflow. Right now, we're just doing the very basics of problem management. We're calling it problem control. How many people use RTFM or other sources to respond to our customers? What we've done here is imported the 3 major sources of knowledge into the knowledge base of UW Connect. That gives us the ability to search for and find answers and use that content when responding to our customers. You can also author new knowledge and take the responses that you construct and push them into the knowledge workflow. We're not going to talk a lot about that today, but you can learn how to do that and author new knowledge via knowledge articles, actually. You can look online and learn how to do that. A little bit of demonstration etiquette. Please ask questions. You may notice I talk fast. I move fast. So stop me if you miss something. That being said, if you start going down a rabbit hole and say, well, you know, in my group we want to do X, Y, and Z, and it's way beyond the scope of this class, I might ask you to stop, and we could address that question later. Does that make sense? I hope it doesn't sound unkind. We just can't address all workflows today. But we could meet after the session during a break and talk about specifics if you wish. Okay, let's navigate the platform. Everyone able to open a browser, go into uweval.service-now.com, and see a page somewhat like this? Everyone's okay? Do you see everything from the back of the room there, Chad? See who's on Facebook? Great. Okay, hopefully you all have a page that looks something like my home page here. If your page does not actually say home page at the top center, I'll click on the switch to page dialog and select home page from this drop-down menu. There are several pre-configured pages there in the list. You could check those out at a later date. I'll ask that you all work from home page for today, because when you click on your UW Connect logo at the top left, I'd like for you all to go back where I go. That make sense? So I know that the natural tendency is to click around and try things out. For much of today, I'll ask that you actually click with me, just so we can all go through the same exercise and really learn the platform. So again, make sure you are on your home page there. At the top left is our UW Connect logo. If you click on that, that's going to take you back to your home page. If you've been experimenting around and maybe clicked on this little icon in the very, very top right, that little box, you might make your banner go away. Try not to do that, because then you lose your link. One thing you're going to notice, I see smiles in the back, I often show you what not to do as well. I hope you can handle that tendency. It's something I can't turn off. We have 4 toggle switches in the top left. Those will toggle your banner off completely if you wish, or your application navigator, which we'll discuss shortly. You can also use the bottom 2 toggles to split your screens. My recommendation to you for today is to make sure that all 4 of those top left toggle buttons are light gray and not dark. Everyone able to do that? Experiment at a later date, but if you have your split screen on, you might get lost during this presentation. Excellent. In this panel here, we have what is called the Application Navigator. If you were to click on the My Records section, you'll also see a bunch of predefined filters that we've all been provided with. These filters mirror the data you see on your home page. What you see on the home page here at the very top is what is called My Work. My Work is going to be all the records in the system that have been assigned to you. So those are My Records. With any luck, you don't have anything right now under My Work. Is that correct? Unless you've been playing around? Great. Below that, we have My Group's incidents, requests, and tasks at the very bottom. These should all mirror the filters you see here. How many people watch multiple RT queues? Go in and check them out. When you're looking at something like My Group's incidents, this is going to be all of the records in all of your groups. So every incident from all of your assignment groups, much like looking at a view of all of your RT queues in one filter. Does that make sense? We are splitting these records out into incidents, requests, and tasks. And I hope by the end of this demonstration you understand why we've done that. That sound okay? Excellent. We're going to start off here with what is called the New Call application. This is a new concept for many of us. How many people answer the phone once in a while and have a customer call? Some people. Not everyone's going to do this, But I'll walk you through the process anyway because it is a useful utility for quick data capture, and you might find that it would be useful for you as well. We have two general destinations for anything that's a new call. You could log them as general inquiry or other, and this is going to basically log that data for your records. Okay? If you log it as a request or an incident, this will create a record and email the customer. This is a lot like clicking on New Ticket in RT. Okay? If you generate a request or an incident, it will email the customer, and then there's the obligation that we will actually follow up with them and resolve that request or incident. Does that make sense? In this particular scenario, what we're going to do is actually log something as general inquiry for our own purposes, and then transfer it to a request record or an incident record so you can see what the workflow looks like. And I just want to take a second. I realize that this is a busy slide, but up here, you can see we're going to generate a call record. You can dead end that right there for your own purposes and your own record keeping. You could transfer it to either an incident or a request, and the customer is going to get a notification. I want to point out that most of our work is going to come in the front door with an email to help at you. And that's going to generate a request record. And if necessary, will be transferred to an incident record. That make sense? From these records, we have the ability to construct tasks. So many people use the concept of a sub-ticket in RT. We have a few people who make sub-tickets. This is a lot like sub-tickets. You can make related records. And through the notes of these, they can communicate amongst each other and back to the request record itself. The key differentiation I want to make here is that the request record communicates to the customer, and these tasks just communicate internally. Make sense? All right. Let's get started. You might notice that as I navigate my application navigator, I'm going to try not to scroll around a bunch. There's a lot of stuff hidden in there. And if you're having a hard time seeing stuff on your page, if you could click on these big and small A's in your application navigator, that's going to help you with your text size. I sometimes see people squinting and looking over their glasses. Check that out. I've made my stuff pretty small, but my hope is that you can see on your screen what I see here as well. Excellent. Let's click on the Service Desk application. In here, we have what is called the new call module. What I'd like to show you how to do is to drag and drop this link onto your PowerEdge. So if everyone could grab new call and drag it over, you can make an icon on your PowerEdge. Everyone able to do that? You can essentially drag anything you can see in this system over to your PowerEdge as a quick shortcut. If you find yourself digging through here and looking for something, odds are you should pin it to your PowerEdge. That make sense? Okay. If you all could click on new call with me. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to be truncating or collapsing my application navigator. I'll ask that you keep yours open, and I think it'll help. You can see a lot on your screen, but you might see that I have a lack of real estate up here. So I'll be collapsing my application navigator, but you can keep yours open. All right, here we have a new call record. First, the concept of a caller. We're all used to people being called requesters in RT. No matter what, in this system, everyone's a caller, whether or not they walked in, emailed, or called. So what I'd like you to do is start typing the net ID of someone you know in UWIT. It doesn't have to be me. It can be anyone you expect to find. You'll notice the type ahead searches across the database. It searches on name, email, employee ID, alumni ID, student ID, and fun stuff like that. Everyone able to find someone they know? If someone does call or walk in and they don't exist in the database, you can click on this lookup icon, and you have the ability to click on new to make a new caller in the system. The only thing that's required is an email address. Yeah, that lookup is the magnifying glass. Yep. And then you can click on new if you are in a position where you have to put a new caller into the system. I'm told there are about 1 million net IDs out in the wild, and you may notice there are only about 26,000 people in our database right now. So if someone does come in and they have a UW net ID that you can't find in the system, all you have to do is put in their UW net ID at uw.edu in here, and their information will be reconciled. Again, very few people are going to do that. The only thing really required is a valid email address. So I'll ask that you find a caller that you like and pick on them for the rest of today. You can see I have the ability to capture one-time contact information. If you did put in someone that has directory information in UW, it would pull in their number automatically. Down here, I have the short description, so I can say help, everything is gone. That's what the customer is crying for, or calling for, rather. And down below, I have what is the description. So I can say they deleted their email. All right, so we have some content there. You notice I'm not too worried about my typos. We now have the ability to classify this request. So if someone's walking in and you want to capture that data, you could just log this as an other type of call. So I'll ask you all do that right now. And I just want to point out, if you remember back on my slide, I said that if you call something general inquiry or other, it's not going to generate an email, correct? So if I log something as an other call, it's just going to have a database entry for us to look at, not the customer. So I just want to point out that if you do that, this is a small lie. The customer visible portion is not actually customer visible. It's only customer visible if we make it a request or an incident. So if you do use this application, please keep that in your mind. All right, in the top right, we have two buttons. We have a submit and a save. I'd like to point out that the hover text is your friend. So if at any time you wonder, well, what's that button going to do? What's the difference? It's always a good idea to hover and see what happens. Anyone want to guess what the difference is here? So the short answer is not much. Both of these buttons are going to commit my entry to the database, and they both can email the customer if applicable. So this is not a save and continue working for later. This means I want to insert this record into the database. The only difference between these two buttons is where you want to go after you click them. Does that make sense? If I click on save, it's going to update my record, and I'll stay here. I sometimes call it a save and stay. If I click on submit, it's going to submit this record and take me back to wherever I was before. And then the more generalizable take-home message here is that any of the buttons you see in the top right here are all going to save the record, commit all changes to the database. The only difference between all of those buttons is where you end up after you click on them. So as we go through the system, through requests and incidents, you're going to see other buttons in the top right. That's all you have to really remember. That make sense? Good. The number, what? That's a great question and something I neglected to show you. The orange fields are not editable. It does look like it, though. It does look like a box you could click in, doesn't it? What that really means, though, is someone else could edit it if they have enough security. So Joby Walker, for example, can edit that. But the rest of us, it says our security permissions do not allow it. So you can see other things that are automatically generated by the system, opened by in the time. And then we had mandatory, we're in red, and all updated fields turn green. And that's telling me that a save is going to be committed to the database. So I'll ask everyone to make this an other type call, and then click on save with me. Hopefully we just committed our first change to the database with no errors. It's always kind of a dramatic event. If you ended up somewhere you didn't want to be, you lost your call, you can always find it, and that's one of the beauties of this application. If you go back to the Service Desk application and look down under New Call, we have a list for My Calls. So you could be swamped at a help desk, and you might need to be logging what you do. You can find everything you've done for the day. Even if you don't answer calls yourself, you may actually supervise people who answer calls. So I want everyone to know how this works. I hope that makes sense, why I'm showing this. So I can see everything I've logged and the actual caller, and I can click and go back. It even shows the time spent on there. So I know how long this was open, which would also be useful if I get a phone call. I can just click on New Call, and the timer starts running. I actually answer the phone once in a while. Not all the time, but sometimes. OK, here we are, back on the call record. You'll notice that all the data we had put into the system got logged here. and no emails were sent out. What we're going to decide now is that we would really actually prefer to email the customer back. We realize that this is an official request. We want to email them a status, and we want to resolve this once it is ready to be resolved. So what I'd like to do here is go into my description and edit this. So now I've actually made this customer consumable. I've put this into a form that's ready to be emailed out to them. And I can change the call type to that of request. That makes sense? Just want to note that as soon as I initiate any action on this, it's going to email out my description to the customer and generate a request in the system. Everyone okay with that? Okay. You notice in the top right that my Save button is gone. I'll have all of you right-click in the gold menu by the Update button. And if you do so, you should be able to see that our option to save is still there. Everyone able to find that? Additionally, we have what is called a context menu over here by call. You see that little green arrow? As you hover over that, you can retain a lot of your options as well. And if you're one of those folks who's fortunate enough to have a touch device in your life, touching on that icon will get your menu back. So you don't have to worry about right clicks so much. Everyone okay with that? And I'll make a note that the next version of the platform that should come out sometime this year, later this year, Mary knows more than me. This summer. Okay, great. Is going to be less right-click dependent. So we'll see what it looks like soon, I hope. But for now, it's really critical that we learn to right-click on that gold bar or hover over this context menu to find some critical updates. Everyone okay with that? I'll ask that you all right-click and save this record. Make a mental note, we just emailed the customer. Everyone okay with that? With any luck, you're on this record, and you'll notice that it has been closed. I can't edit it anymore. It's been converted into a request in our system. And it logged the initial description down here. And it also logged my edited version of the description here. This edited version, the last one I had in the description, is what was sent out to the customer. And we'll verify that. I don't expect you just to trust or believe what I say. I'll show you that. Everyone okay? The general inquiry is just going to stay in your call log. It's not going to send an email. It can't. And so you might be inputting some data or capturing data. You can actually log it there, and it's searchable across our database as well. So it is good for quick customer data capture. And also, if you're swamped, let's say the phone's ringing off the hook, you're helping someone work, you can log as an other call and then go back and process them and then make them customer consumable, right? You don't want to generate a new record with typos in it, for example. So you can always go back and convert it to an actual request record. Okay, great. So if you got lucky and hit save, you have a link on your record to the request. I'd like for you to click on that link and follow the request, follow to the request. If you lost your link, which happens, you can see over here within the form the actual request number. So you can also copy that number and paste into the global search in the top right. The global search in the top right, search across all records. We'll talk more about that later. Is everyone able to follow the path to a request now? Anyone lose it? Great. I'll just point out, you can stay where you are. If I go back to my calls, I can see the call I opened, and I can also see the request it was turned into in the database. So hopefully you can see that up there. So I can always follow my work and see what happened with it. Okay. It's very interesting behavior. That's why I want everyone to see how that works. We're not going to talk about the new call application anymore. Just wanted you to see it so you can make an informed decision. All right. Let's take a look at a request record for the first time. How many people have already kicked the tires, clicked around, and made some stuff? So for some of you, this is not the first time. For others, it is. We can scroll down and check out the log. what you can see in the log is this is the edited description that I had transferred over from the call record. And you even see the formatted email. This is exactly what the customer saw. So the description, the edited description I provided was sent out to the customer in an email, and a link to go back to our portal and follow up on their request. Does that make sense? If it were an email to help at you, they would just get a ping back without a description saying a request has been opened on your behalf. You can click here to follow it, things like that. Up at the top, we have a few new items to learn about. The first is that of a configuration item. If you could all click on this little icon to the right of the configuration item, it's called the CI Navigator. This is going to pop up a list of UWIT's business services and service offerings. And if you were to drill down, for example, I know I can look into collaboration and productivity and click on Catalyst. This is a service that I support and commonly use as an example. Is everyone able to drill down through that list and find something that means something to them? You'll let me know if you don't, right? I don't see a lot of pained looks. Great. Just want to point out that when I choose this particular service offering, I have then a default assignment group. The assignment group is roughly equivalent to the RT queues that we're used to working in. I just want to make a note that a lot of service managers have taken this opportunity to either change the names of their queues into different assignment groups, potentially consolidated queues into assignment group, or split up into different assignment groups. So as a service team, my challenge to you is to go back as a team and make sure you know the names of all of your service offerings in here called configuration items and all of the default assignment groups. Does that sound okay?
So yours has a green bar on the assignment group. Mine's red. What is that?
Yeah, so it's usually red if it's required and empty. Is yours still empty?
No, it's not
Oh, that sounds like a glitch. I'd let it go. Yeah. That sounds fine. I don't know. Yeah, it's okay. I'm not sure. There are a lot of things I don't know. Thanks, though. You'll note that this was assigned to you by default. You do have the ability to assign this to someone else. So I see Keisha in the back. I could start typing ahead and put someone else's name in there. And at any time on any record, you can always click on the Add Me icon. There's this little person. I missed my hover text. You can always click on the Add Me icon to add yourself to a record. This would be akin to taking something in RT or potentially stealing in RT. How many people like doing that? It always makes me smile whenever I steal a ticket in RT. If someone else is assigned one, you can add yourself and you've effectively stolen that ticket from them. Okay. You might come up with errors here if you try to add someone who's not a member of that assignment group. So this is actually a scoping mechanism to make it easier to search. So for example, if I wish to add someone who's not in that assignment group, I can work around it and just start typing their name. See? I could put in someone else and then put it back. I'm not going to assign this to Carolee. She probably wouldn't be happy about that. But everyone okay with that? That's just a scoping mechanism for your search. You can work around it if you wish. You will get a red if you have an error. I'll show you an error. If you try to put someone in who doesn't count, it's a different kind of error. If this person isn't a member, and you have to repair that, or you're going to throw an error when you try to commit this to the database. So it's useful to actually do this on purpose. Everyone able to get through that? You've gotten through your first big hurdle in the system. I'm going to touch a little bit about when customers are going to be communicated with right now. So right now we've made a couple changes, and I would like to save this record. Yeah. Color still red? Ah, sorry. That's a different color red. That might be what you're seeing. Yeah, it's slightly different. It says mandatory and preloaded with saved data. It came over from the form with that intact. But that wouldn't explain why yours was red, though. That's still a little odd. Yeah. Yeah, for mine. But I thought you were asking about assignment group. Maybe I misheard.
It was
Okay. We'll figure it out. But since we didn't pre-configure an assignment group, I'm not sure why yours came over that way, but we'll figure it out.
Service that she selected had a default assignment group that came in as service center.
Okay, great. All right, glad we got that updated. So up in here, we see a few boxes. You see update, resolve, create our task. Will the customer get emailed if we click on any of those boxes? I hear a yes. That was a trick question. I only ask trick questions. The customer will not get notified in this situation. This record has already been inserted one time. So if you look down the log, they did get an email initially when this request record was created. If we just make simple updates to the record, including changing these form fields, it's not going to generate an email. So I just want everyone to be able to predict when customers will be emailed. It's very important. So you can all right-click and save. I just want everyone to feel comfortable with that. We've just committed our changes, and the customer wasn't emailed because we made simple changes to the form. Everyone okay with that? If you scroll down, we have an additional comment section. And probably the only thing you need to remember from today, the only thing that matters, is if you commit a change to these records with additional comments present, that will generate an email to our customers. That's the most important thing to remember. So if I say hi there, and I hit save, or more accurately, any of these buttons in the top right, that's going to trigger an email, and my additional comments will go out. That make sense? I have a list of some of the events that will generate a customer communication, but they're all a derivative of this. This is all that really matters. The reason why I'm actually stressing the point, I hope you don't mind me being a little bit deliberate in this. You might say, oh, you know what? I'm not ready to update the customer. I'm just going to delete that text. Anyone just see what happened? I saw an uh-oh. Yeah, it's still green. I had blank spaces after it. I would literally send out a blank email to the customer. So if there's text here, including spaces, and that light's green, any update to the record is going to trigger an email to the customer. So I just want to stress that. You can't say I didn't warn you. I wish this light were bigger, right? But we're all going to be trained to look for that green light before clicking on anything. And that's why we're also in eval right now. We can practice, see what's going to happen. I really do encourage you to take some tickets from RT, put them in here, and work them as if they were a customer-facing request. So I know that I had some blank spaces. I just clicked delete a few times, and my light turned off. So we'll stress this as we go through this. No big deal. OK, everyone able to click on update? And we'll go back to wherever we were before. Anyone throw errors? Everyone's OK? Great. So I just want to point out, we initially created a call record. We then transferred it to a request record. And upon creation of that request record, we did email the customer. We now have the obligation to follow up and resolve this request record. I use the word obligation. We have the opportunity to resolve that request record for our customer. So I'm going to ask you a few questions today. I'd like for you to leave this lab today knowing which service offerings you support and which assignment groups you are a member of. That includes the Tier 1 and Tier 2 fulfillment and support groups. And in order to accomplish that, I'd like to demo essentially searching for your NetID within the system, Googling yourself. And then we're going to take a look at the service offerings portion of the configuration. And folks in IAM wanted to remind everyone to make sure you've signed your institutional access and use agreement, because we're going to show you a lot of data here. All right, in the top right, I almost clicked on the Google bar. In the top right of our screen, we have the ability to do a global search. I'd ask for you all to put in your own NetID. And you can hit enter. This will do a global search for your NetID. Depending on how your system is set up, you may have all of these areas truncated or collapsed. Expand people and places for me, and then click on your UW NetID. Everyone able to find your own entry in the system? All right. A point of protocol. If you were to look at my screen, you're going to see that I have a bunch of areas tabbed. By default, a lot of people have what is called the scroll of death. If you will go up there in the top right, you have the ability to toggle your tabs on and off. There's a little icon that looks like an index card. Click on that for me. Otherwise, you're going to be doing a lot of scrolling today, and it gets long. So click on that index card to make sure that you see your data tabbed like mine. This preference is going to remain throughout the system, so when you go into other record types, the tabs are going to remain, and that way when I'm doing a demo, your screen's going to look like my screen. If at a later date you want to turn them off, by all means. So this is actually a really fun section. You're actually seeing all of my incidents and requests as a customer. So for example, if you had a request from a customer, you could look them up in the system and see all their previous incidents and requests and get an idea of the type of issues they have or all of their previous history with us. We'll skip that for right now, but a lot of people are looking at this as almost like a CRM Lite. We can actually keep a history of our customers' interactions. If you would click on the fourth tab with me and click on Groups, this is going to show all of the assignment groups in the system that you are a member of. So when you look on that home page and you see My Groups Incidents, for example, that means that there's an assignment, or there's an incident with one of these assignment groups present. Everyone see something that matters to them? If you only see UW IT staff, it means that your service manager has not added you to the appropriate groups and you need to talk to them. I'll click on UW IT staff just for fun. You'll note that there are 694 group members. You can go in and check them all out if you want. Up in the system here, in the CN, you actually see the UW group that's feeding that. So for example, you're working in a service group and someone's not in there, you know which UW group to go edit in order to edit the membership. Does that make sense? So even though I'm not a service manager, I'm a member manager of my UW groups, and I can make sure that all my staff are present and can see the correct records. So with any luck, even if you don't see the correct groups here today, you have the ability to go check it out. I'll go back into our application navigator and click on configuration. If you'll follow along, I'll ask that you click on service offerings under configuration. Everyone will pull up that list. So this shows the 149 service offerings. This is in essence our service catalog. So when we were populating a configuration item in a record, this is the list we were pulling from. So some folks were struggling in the past in their sessions to find the correct service offerings, and this is what you're supposed to look for. So basically, I found the service offerings that mean something to me, and I'm able to type ahead and find them quickly because I know their names. I'll pick on some people I know. For example, I can see a service offering that's owned by Tom Lewis and managed by Karen Roberts. She manages all the services that I support. So for example, if I wanted to find all of my services, I have a little trick. I can right-click on the cell by her name. Everyone able to right-click on at least the empty space of one cell? You can choose to show matching, and this is going to apply a very quick database filter on that element. So I can actually see all of Karen's services. Hopefully you found something that means something to you. And I then can see the default fulfillment group and support group. The fulfillment group is expected to be the Tier 1 support group, and that's going to be the default assignment group applied whenever you choose a configuration item. That make sense? So this is kind of like the default queue for a ticket to fall into. If you were to escalate, I have a little diagram over here of requests and tasks. If you were to escalate out through a task, it is this support group that's the default for tasks. And for some teams, it's actually the same group. That make sense? So you can find your services, find your groups, and you can literally click on those groups and see if you are a member of that group. And if you find something is amiss, you can talk to your service manager to make sure that's corrected. And all of these defaults are configured through EMIR. If you are a service manager, that's why people have been asking you to get your stuff up to date. Any questions about that? No, so you're going to leave here with the power to at least investigate and start those discussions. A little bit about filters and tables. In RT, we're used to this idea of tickets moving around amongst queues. It's a very evocative image. Here, it's just a big database with all of the requests from customers as records. And so what we're going to be doing is having filters to put the correct records in front of you. That's really no different than a search of RT, but it's a slightly different concept. The defaults that we have made are going to display the records you're assigned to, and then the combined records of your assignment groups. And I want to stop here and pause and talk a little bit about the task table. How many people are familiar with databases? Maybe a little bit. It helps a tiny bit. I just want to point out that if you are filtering against the task table, it's going to return all of your records. And that's an important point. So if you're searching for something or want to display something, a filter against the task table is going to show all of your requests, incidents, problems, and task records. So if in doubt, or when in doubt, search from the task table. If you were to run a filter against just the request table, it will only return requests. And hopefully by the end of this session, you'll understand why you may want to do that at times. I just want to point out, when you're making custom filters, it's important to know which table you are filtering against. Does that make sense? And if you don't know anything at all about databases, this is literally all you need to know. Okay. Okay, back in the system. I would like for you all to click on the My Records application and click on Unassigned Work. This is a useful filter that was constructed for teams who basically want to find all of the records for all of their groups that no one is working on. So if no one's assigned to a record, it's going to show up here, and then you can recognize that this is something I need to work on. So I could take one of these records, assign myself, and own it. Does that make sense? This is also a useful filter to start with when building custom filters. You'll note that it's made against the task table, so you can see tasks in the top left. And just as a reminder, that's going to return all of our incidents, requests, problems, and tasks. And you have a little caret below that. It's a little gray caret that's hard to see. This is going to load our filter builder. So if you could all extend that filter for me, we'll be on the same page. We do have breadcrumbs at the top, which essentially show the same information, but it's not very human readable. What this filter is here is showing all active records where the assigned to is empty, right? And the assignment group is one of my groups. And this last one here filters out resolved records. And that's just a nuance of the database. I wouldn't worry about it too much. What I'd like for you to do is delete a few of these. Just keep assignment group as one of my groups. Click on this X and knock down your filter to just the one element. You do have the ability to click and add additional elements if you want to do filtering. So you could look for an assignment group that is one of my groups. You could also choose assignment group is and choose a specific group. So you can construct filters of the database that find specific groups if you wish. For right now, what I'd like you to do is go in the first element of this filter and go all the way down to updated by. So we're just going to run a filter that says updated by is. Well, it defaults to start with. That's basically the same. I keep forgetting that. Type in your NetID. After doing that, you can click Run. So this shows, for me, the 322 records, that was the last person to update. Do you guys all return at least one thing? So we all made a request record. It should show at least that record. The only downside of this filter, it makes me sad, is that if someone else were to update this record after me, this wouldn't find that record. This only returns the records that I was the last person to update. The reason why I'm having you do this today is that if you lose something today, you misclick, something goes away, you can always use this filter to find it again. What I'll ask you to do is grab the last element of the filter. In this case, it's the NetID. Grab your NetID and drag it over to your PowerEdge. Everyone able to do that? So now at any time, if I were to click on that version of the filter, this is a pinned version of the filter, I can run it and find all the records for which I was the last person to update. That make sense? And again, if you forget to assign something to yourself, or you make a small mistake as you're learning the system, this will help you recover your records, and I find it to be useful in workshops. Everyone okay with that? Excellent. Let's play around with this a little bit. You might notice that my list, so this is a list view of the database. My list might look a little different than yours. It's because I've been customizing it. If you could all click on this, this gear icon. This allows you to personalize the columns that display. And for mine, I actually have some custom stuff, so I'm going to click on Reset and OK to wipe mine clean. For you, if you click on that gear icon, we can choose a few new things to add. A couple that are useful. I like created. This will give you a time and date stamp for when something was created. That's a useful way to sort. And I can just click the arrow to push it over. And as I move it up in this list, it's going to move it laterally in my list view. Another one that's useful is updated. Updated is going to give you a timestamp for when something was last updated. Just another element that you can sort by. And one of my favorites is updates. This is actually going to give me a numerical value for how many updates a record has had. So I can see if something's had 27 updates, there might be something going on there I might need to intervene. So a lot of useful columns that you can add. And then you can see here, 2 updates, great. Oh, 9 updates. There must be some back and forth going on with that customer. Someone might be mad. I just want to make a note here. If you were to update the columns that are visible, you'll note that we're on the task table. This is changing the default view for every time you see the task table. So don't go get too exotic and add tons of stuff that you may not want to see later unless you have a really widescreen monitor. Great. So now I can actually sort on something like created, and I have it showing this last one here. And I'll point out a couple other things that are fun to do. You can click on an element. So here I'm going to right-click again. Remember how we did that when we were looking at the user table for our services? You can right-click in the white space next to something and choose, again, Show Matching. And I just wanted to point out that as you do that, you are essentially building a filter as you go. So if you look at your breadcrumbs, I've got all records updated by me in the assignment group of Catalyst. So I can drill down and actually do sorts and filters on the database quite quickly. I also have the ability to click on the greater than symbol to eliminate any element of that filter. For example, I could go in and eliminate the updated by me. So now I'm just showing all records in that assignment group. That make sense? So I can interact with this database in several ways, and it's quite fast. Anyone who's ever struggled with a saved search in RT is going to embrace this openly. Any questions about that? You guys have earned your first break. So at 2:01, we'll come back. If you would like, you can get some caffeine that way. Bathrooms are that way. And I'd be happy to also answer any questions you've So everyone's back. So if you remember at the beginning, we talked about service requests. I'll just reiterate that all emails coming into help@uw.edu is going to generate a request. That's going to be the default. They can be converted to incidents as needed, and I'll show you how to do that near the end. How many people use subtickets in RT? Anyone use subtickets? We have at least one person. Those will be replaced by the concept of a task. And for requests, we'll call them R tasks because they are directly associated with a request. Requests can also optionally require approval. Not a lot of folks are doing this. So if anyone has any questions about that, I can show you how to do it. But I'm not going to demo it here today. You can make it so that they require approval if necessary. OK, let's get started on this. we are going to go back into our application navigator, pull up service requests, and select create new request. How many people make new tickets in RT from time to time? So a lot of people have to make new tickets. This demo is going to be a little bit repetitive in that I'll have you make several requests and work them. I apologize for that. I couldn't find a way around it. I'll click on create new request. And by now I hope that these form fields are looking comfortable to you. So I'm going to type in my configuration item. Note my assignment group. I'm going to remember to assign it to myself. So I'm going to add me to make sure I can find this request. I'm going to pick on the same caller just to get this built out and get started. Everyone have your data populated? So I just want to point out that we have a couple fields that we're asked to fill out whenever we're processing new requests. I'll show you first impact and urgency. So impact is going to be a measure of how many people are impacted by this or affected by this. So for example, if it's a lot of folks, it would be high. A single person would be low. And urgency can be used to determine how much of a VIP someone is, for example. So if Kelly has a request, I would change the urgency to high, for example. We can all think of VIPs in our services. What this will do is then calculate a priority for us. So we can't directly alter the priority, but by changing the impact and urgency, we can calculate a priority. So if you imagine an assignment group full of records or a queue full of tickets, you could sort based on priority and help triage and figure out what to do first. Let's scroll on down to the short description. Let's say help. I deleted my email. And I'm going to make a mental note that if someone were to email help at you and it made a request, this would be the subject line of their email. Let's look on over to the watch list and work notes list. The watch list is going to be the list of folks who are going to get all the customer visible comments. And you might catch me using the terms customer and caller interchangeably. That's because the system does. So the caller is going to be the initial requester, and the watch list is going to be akin to the CC list on RT. How many people use CC right now? So you can have additional callers receiving our information. How many people use admin CC in RT? I love that. This is going to be a list of folks who can actually see the internal communication, the private communication for UW IT. I'll just make a note that you can open this up and add anyone's email address. So it's not just UW IT staff. Anyone on the work notes list will also get a copy of the internal communication as well as the customer visible comments. You can set a due date, and there's a field for audit if you choose to use that. Let's go down here to the description. And here's where the customer would email us their request. Hi, everything is gone. And then they've got a request to me. Everyone's got some content in there. I'm just going to pause and mention that if a customer were to email us to help at you, they would automatically get a ping back saying your request has been received, and all that. So that's automatic whenever a request is generated. When we click Save here, this is going to insert a record into our database, and the customer is going to be notified. They will be given a copy of the description that we entered. Okay? So even if you don't ever create new requests, it doesn't matter. But while you're practicing, keep that in mind. The caller is going to get this email when we first insert the record into the database. So let's all click on Save and stay here. Yep, I'll do that in this. Yeah. Yeah, Mary mentioned that I kind of glossed over impact and urgency. I'm kind of that kind of person. If you want to know the actual definitions, at any time you can click on any of these question marks to go in and see what the official definition is as opposed to my informal definition? Yeah, these help icons, all this help text and hover text is definitely going to help you as you navigate the new system and new processes. So let's make a mental switch. Let's forget that we created this and put our help desk hats on and start working this request from scratch. Does that make sense? The customer did get an email saying that the request has been received, and now we're going to work it and respond to them. Let's scroll on down. We can take a look at the description. If you were to scroll beyond that, we can go all the way down to the log. And I do recommend before working any record that you do scan the log, because this is a new system, a new process. A lot of information is going to be generated in the log here, and you want to get familiar with that. Now that we realize this is a new request, we can start composing a response to the customer, and I'll do so in the additional comments field, the customer visible field. Say, hi, Jake. Sorry to hear that. This is my nicely formatted email. Below that, you're going to see the work notes field. This is where I can take internal notes. So I can say, I recovered the account, etc. So again, people on the work notes list will also get this communication if you wish to communicate that way. Okay, you can see that I have additional comments to the customer. I then have several options for communicating to the customer. I could save, update, resolve, or create a task. All of those buttons, all of those options would actually commit the change and communicate to the customer. Sound okay? I'll ask you all to right-click, save, and stay. We're all okay with that? If at any time you click the wrong button, come back to your filter here, and you should be able to find your request, the last things you've updated. Great. So let's go down to our log and see the changes we've made. I have my initial email upon insertion. You'll note that I can see the work notes that are internal only with a little lock icon in that beigeish color, and the customer communication here in a gray color. I'm going to now take the opportunity to show you that you can edit the customer description. So for example, if someone were to email us with two requests that are very similar, you could take elements from one and combine it and add it here. So I'm going to go in here and edit the description. So I'm going to ask you what's going to happen to this description if I save this record. And I'll remind you, I only ask trick questions. What do you think is going to happen if I right-click and save? I have an email. I have one vote for email. That's a great guess, but it's wrong. So every time we email the customer, we send out a copy of the description. That is true. But an edit only to the description will not trigger an email. It's only if we have additional comments and update the record will that trigger a customer email. So that's why I belabored that point. I appreciate you, fancying a guess. That was a good try. It's very logical. This will not generate an email. So I can right-click and save. Again, I like to save and stay so you can see the result. I have the description committed. If you go down to the log, it will actually note in the log that I changed the description, and the original, of course, is still in the log. Now, it does say that the description field is customer visible, and that's for good reason. Every time we email out a comment, the description will be sent with it, so it will become customer visible. And also, with every communication that we send out to a customer, there's a link to come back to our portal and actually see the most current state of their request. Whenever a customer comes to the portal, they're actually going to see the most recent version of the description. So if this customer were to go to the portal right now, they would see this information. It just didn't generate an email. This is part of the improved transparency part of this bit. Everyone okay with that workflow? Great. Now, sometimes you're looking at the log here and saying, Jake, I'd like to see the most recent version of the log. I want to update or refresh this. I'll ask that you not hit F5 or refresh your browser. It's not going to do what you want it to do. If you'd like to refresh this particular form, I'll have you right-click on that bar. Remember how important this context menu is up there? Right-click on your gold bar. And amongst all the important options, you have the ability to reload the form. So that's why I'm really teaching right-click here.
How's that different from update?
In this instance, if you were to just right-click, update would actually update this record and send you back. It would send you somewhere else. And if you don't want to work on this record anymore, that's totally fine. But in this instance, I want to stay on the record, so I want to make sure I reloaded it, or I could have saved it. A save would have been fine. Since I hadn't really committed any changes, a save would have just refreshed it too. So you could click here, right-click and save as many times as I want. It's not going to really do anything unless I've changed the field. I just wanted to point out, after reloading this, that I can see the formatted email I sent out to the customer with the description and also my formatted response below it. You can see that the description goes out above it. So if the customer has a very long, rambling, inaccurate description, you may want to truncate that a little bit too for clarity. I kind of wish our comments were above that, but that's just my 2 cents. Okay, everyone okay with the construction of this and the communication options? Excellent. We're going to talk about a few more things right now. Up in the top right, do you all see this little email icon? If you could click on that with me. You do have the ability to actually construct an email and send it out. And this could be to a different customer. It could be a vendor. Through this email option, I also have the ability to attach a file. So if you do want to send an email out to the client, you can do it this way. Okay? If you send an email, it's actually going to be logged. So you will have a record that an email had been sent from this record. So it's a great way to send an attachment or contact additional people outside of the original scope of this ticket record. I don't correct other people when they say ticket anymore, so I hope you'll be kind to me too. The other option you see up in the top right is attachments. If the customer were to give us an attachment, it would actually be listed at the top if they sent one in. We have the ability to browse and add attachments to this record itself. So you can have artifacts attached to this. Just want to point out that if you wish to send an attachment to the customer, it's done via the email icon. Another point, if you were to click on the book on the far right of the short description, it's kind of an afterthought way over there. Does everyone see that little book? That's the search knowledge option. I wanted to show you all how to use knowledge. What ends up happening is the entire subject line gets used for the knowledge search, and you may find that the wording that the customer has used to describe their problem may not be accurate. So I'd recommend deleting that and typing as well if you wish. And this is kind of fun. You can drop down suggested search items. Everyone able to interact with that? Again, I just clicked on that little book icon to the right of the short description. I'm going to click on a knowledge article and show you how to use it. It may seem simple, but it's not. Okay, so this is a good example, a super long knowledge article. I may look through this article and decide that a small portion of this is useful for my customer. So what I would do is actually go in and copy and paste the answer I would like to provide to the customer. So I'm just literally going to do Control-C and copy this. That make sense? I'll go into my additional comments. I'll paste it. And then I can use some definitive knowledge source to provide information to the customer. I'm going to right-click and save. And then you can see what it looks like. The downside of the copy and paste is that you do lose your formatting. I'll go back up and show you the second option. I'm going to click on my knowledge search again. And you'll find that same incidents article at the top. if I decide that this article is perfect and I would like to give this information to my customer intact, I have the ability to attach it in its entirety to the request. I'd like to show you what that looks like. I'm going to click on Attach to Requests. How many people in the room love HTML? You're going to love this then. So this is going to show all the formatted article with HTML formatting intact. You can edit this if you wish, but I trust that this is going to render my formatting properly. I'm a trust but verify kind of guy, so since we're in eval, I'm going to show you what this looks like. I wouldn't send out an article to a customer unless I knew that article looked good when I sent it out. So my comments got scrubbed and pushed down to my work notes, and here you can see the formatted response to the customer with all the HTML formatting intact. So you have two options when using knowledge in that regard. Everyone okay with that? Good. Okay, so let's assume that this is a relatively complex request. And in order to fulfill it, I need to send out what used to be called a sub-ticket to another group to fulfill a component of that. What we're going to do up here in the top right is create an R task. And if I'm really efficient, I might say, hi, Jake, asking for help from another group. And I'm going to click on Create R Task, knowing that when I click on Create R Task, I'm going to email this to the client. That makes sense? Again, all these buttons in the top right, they save the record. And if you have additional comments down here, it will email them out. That makes sense? So if you type something here and click Create R Task, we assume you know what you're doing and wanted to email the customer. Everyone able to create that R task? Good. So this looks pretty familiar. It's going to have our configuration item. It should have the default fulfillment group, support group. So the tier 2 group should populate here. And you can change that, of course. And I can also assign this to myself. While you're working records today, again, I would recommend that you always assign them to yourself. Down on the bottom right, we actually have a clock that starts ticking. So if you actually would like this, you can let this click while you're working a record. And it's going to keep track of both your current and cumulative time. So each time you open up a task, it starts ticking and starts adding to the cumulative. This is not going to report automatically to Dynamics or anything like that, but it's useful for you if you want to track your time. The description gets copied over from the request. And we also have the work notes section. This is similar to the request itself. I just want to point out that when you're talking about tasks, the work notes section is the critical way to communicate. So the work notes from a task are going to communicate back to the request itself, and they're also going to be copied over to all other request tasks associated with this request. So if you had 15 request tasks on this request, all of the work notes will copy to each other and communicate amongst tasks. That make sense? You'll notice nothing is customer visible here. There's no way to communicate to a customer through a request task. So I can say work now complete. I'll put my engineering hat on. Work now complete. And I have the ability to change the state of my task to close complete. You can see others as well if that suits your process. Any questions about that? This was designed to function a lot like a sub-ticket. I'm going to click Update and go back to the request. So now you can clearly see that I have a request task associated with this request, and also the update from the engineer. That was a joke, by the way. My humor is a little bit dry. I just want to point out that we have to be trained to look in the log if we're using request tasks, okay? Sorry, it's late. If you scroll down here to your log, you'll see down here that I have a note from the task communicating back from the work notes. If the customer were to respond to us, that too would be at the top of our log. So we really have to be trained to go down and check the log before we do anything. That sound okay? At the very bottom, this ends up being kind of an ugly example because I pasted in such a long response. I can truncate my log by clicking on that little button on the far right. I don't know if you can see it. It says toggle activity. I can toggle my log. But if you come all the way down here to the bottom of the request, I can see a tab for request tasks, R tasks, and there should be a list of all the R tasks associated there as well. Just make a note that you can't close a request if there are any open R tasks. That make sense? I'm going to do a little exercise for you here. I'll ask you to follow along. It's mainly just for fun. I can click on Create R Task and go back. Create R Task and go back. I've just created 2 tasks. I don't have to save them or anything like that. I literally created them. If you were to go to the bottom of my request, you'll notice that I have 2 open tasks. If I decide, I don't need those done now, I want to shut them down, I don't have to go into each of these tasks and close them. There's a little trick. I can actually double-click on an entry and change it from here. So I could even toggle the state of this task to close complete without going into it. If you look at the task you made, you can do the same. And then the other one, which is fun, if I hold Control and Shift, I can actually do a multiple select. And I can update 2 rows at a time. And we'll talk a little bit about those shortcuts later as we're doing a multiple update. So if I had a big request with 15 tasks, I could close complete them all and then close the request. So there are some little efficiencies to be gained. Close skipped, which is more accurate in this example. And now I'm able to resolve my request. Everyone okay with that? Yeah. I never remember how to get the multiple select, so I always just start clicking on key combinations and seeing what works. I'll have to admit that. My memory's not so great. Yeah. Hopefully you do better than I do. Let's go over here and learn a few new tricks. Templates are a lot of fun. So if you find yourself giving kind of a templated response, the same response all the time to particular requests, it's really important that you learn how to use templates. They're going to function very similarly to knowledge searches. I just want you to see the functionality. So if I've got a saved template, I can start typing and searching. I know that I have some called template. I'm not very inventive at times. I'm going to assume that you don't have any templates. And in this particular example, I'm going to assume that some of the information we've put into this record would be really useful for future records. That make sense? Like I'm going to process these all the time, and I need to reduce the number of clicks in my life. So what I'm going to do is go back to my top context menu. I'm going to right-click and point out the templates option. Everyone find that? I could apply a template, but the more interesting one for right now would be to save as template. So what I'm going to do is take all the changes I've made to this particular record and save it as a template. Everyone able to do that? I'll just make note here that all the information comes in here, perhaps more than you want. But you can delete things you don't want. So, for example, maybe I don't want to automatically assign to me, or maybe I do. Maybe instead of clicking on Assign to Me, all I do is apply a template that assigns it to me and does a bunch of other really cool things as my very first action. I can go down here and say, oh, that's a good description, I'll keep that. Or maybe I can edit it. I can get rid of that now edited part. I could also say, you know what, maybe my caller isn't always this person, which is probably not the case. So I'm going to delete that line. So you can modify your templates heavily. It's sometimes nice, though, to take a stock response, start from a response, and then whittle it down. I'll point out that in the Choose Field section, I can add a whole bunch of other information that's pre-populated, including work notes. So very powerful. Over here, under Group, you can actually search for the assignment groups that you're a member of. And if you save this, everyone in that group can also use your same template, which can be very powerful as well. I'll make a note on group behavior, and I'll reiterate this again later. any template you save to a group can be accessed, edited, and deleted by any member of that group. So please play nicely with each other. If you have a really cool template that you spent hours making, I would recommend saving it to yourself, yourself, and then saving a copy to a group as well, and you can do that. Make sense? Great. I'm not going to update this particular one, but if I click update, this would insert it as a personal template, and I can use it as I see fit. So this brought me back to someplace I didn't want to be. Thankfully, I have a link back to all the records I last updated. You can see here I made 3 request tasks since my last update of the request. I can go back to where I was before. So now, if I were to go in here and search for and apply a template, I could do so, and it's going to pre-fill. In this particular one, it put in I need a router, hi, I need a router as my template. Everyone okay with that workflow? Hopefully you make better templates than me. Also, don't spend hours making templates in eval. Go and make them in production so you can actually use them. I don't want anyone to get frustrated with me that you wasted a ton of time in eval. This is just for fun right now. Okay, do you all feel ready to resolve? Let's talk a minute about state. I'm going to click on this question mark so you can follow along here. We've got a few new states for you to ponder. The first is that of awaiting user info. How many people have ever asked a customer for more information and had them never get back to us? So this state is for those people. What this will do is if you respond to a customer while the record is in this state, it's going to give them 5 working days to respond. If they don't, they'll get a gentle reminder that we're still waiting. If they don't respond within an additional 5 business days, 10 business days total, it's going to automatically close their record. If they wish to open it up again, they're going to have to open up a new record with us. That make sense? So this is for those people who, ask us a question, we ask them for more information, and they never get back to us. We can do that. You may decide that you're working with a VIP and you don't wish for that to happen. There are other states for you. Internal review allows you, if it's in that state, it doesn't make the configuration item mandatory. So you can actually save a record while you figure out where it belongs. This is often used by the service center, or will be often used. Let's talk a little bit about resolved. Resolved is a status that you would put it in, or the state you would put it in, if you believe you've actually fulfilled the client's request and don't expect any further follow-up. What will happen is they have 3 days to object. So they can click on a link to open, or they can reply within 3 business days, and that will actually make this request active again. If they don't reply within 3 days, it's automatically going to move to the closed state, and they cannot reopen that request. If they wish, they can click and make a new request within the system, but they can't reopen it after 3 business days. That sound okay? How many people have had clients respond to 3-year-old tickets and reopen that old ticket? That's no longer possible in the future. They're going to have to. They can click on that ticket, that old request, and make a new one with us. Now you might actually understand the status of delivered. You may have a really important request, a VIP. You may actually want to leave it in the delivered state while you wait until you talk to the client before moving it to the resolved state and that automated workflow of closing. That make sense? Great. All right, let's go back and resolve this one. State is resolved. You'll notice that we are enforcing some mandatory fields. When I try to put it in the resolved state, it tells me I have to provide additional comments. Hi, Jake. Now delivered. We are not allowed to quietly close records. So in RT, we can mark things closed and walk away. In here, we're required to put in additional comments, and that's going to generate an email to the customer. Under the Closure Information tab, you can see that's red. We're also required to put in a closed code. So those are the two elements of a request that are required for us to resolve it. And while we're on this tab, I'll just point out the Knowledge button. If you click on Knowledge, after the record's actually closed, after 3 business days and it becomes closed, the content of this record is going to be put into the knowledge workflow. And once approved, it can be edited and actually published as knowledge to use in the future. So if you spent a long time on this particular customer response, you can make this available as future knowledge for other people to use. That make sense? So that checkbox puts it into the knowledge workflow. You see a couple buttons here, update and resolve. They're both functionally equivalent right now. The only real question is where you end up after you click on them. I'm going to click on resolve request, and that keeps me here. Update would have taken me away. Everyone able to successfully resolve this request? I'll just point out that for 3 days, 3 business days, as an IT worker, I too can still move this request back into an active state. But if I don't, after 3 days, it will be closed permanently, and I cannot change that state. The other thing to point out is that I showed you a workflow of changing the state to resolved, and then I clicked update. You can just click on resolve. That will automatically set it to a state of resolved, and it's just one fewer click. So that's why we have the 2 buttons there. But again, I have to have my comments and closure information. Everyone okay with that? Good. So you guys have thoroughly worked this request. I think our customers should be happy. If you were looking at this request and realized, oh, wait, this is an outage, there's something broken here, it might affect other customers, you can right-click on the gold bar at the top and convert it to an incident. Obviously, this was a somewhat unnatural scenario. You would probably look at this request and immediately convert it to an incident if you saw it in your assignment group. Does that make sense? But I just want to show you that any time you're working it, you can convert it to an incident. Just be careful if you have a lot of request tasks. Those request tasks are not going to come over into the new incident. The customer won't get emailed when we convert it to an incident. It's going to quietly close this request and open up an incident that we're then going to resolve in the future. That make sense? The customer doesn't need to know that it's an incident. They frankly don't care. They just want their service. Phew. Okay. Any questions about request? The close code? That is what, yeah. So that is what the request process owner wants us to put in there so we can get metrics on what percentage of our requests are complete, incomplete, canceled, or rejected. This service now is not enforcing this. Well, it is because our process demands it. You good? Good. There's a lot of information hidden behind tabs, so we have to train ourselves to go look for those tabs, look for tasks, look for... And again, you can turn the tabs off. It's just a lot of scrolling, and I wanted you to have the same view I have for now. You may decide, oh, I love scrolling. You can do that at a later date. Well, I think on a tablet, you can kind of just throw it up, and it'll scroll automatically. Who knows? Everyone okay with the request? Great. I think this is an overview of the general workflow. I put it up there so I don't forget that we plotted through this a little bit, but always go down, check out the latest communication in your log before working the request. Incident management. Again, it's an incident if something's broken, if they had a service yesterday and they don't have it today. I showed you briefly how to convert a request into an incident, and that would be the most common way incidents would be generated, is that they come in as a request and we convert them as an incident and work it as such. Just like with requests, you can have incident tasks, and so you could assign a task to an engineering group to reboot a server, and they would then fulfill their task and get back to you. The assumption of incident management is that someone in the Tier 1 support group will actually own the incident and assign tasks to Tier 2 support professionals, but someone's watching that incident record to make sure the customer is communicated with in a timely manner. SolarWinds and Dash may generate incidents. How many people deal with automated incidents? No one? Oh, you? Okay. And I want to point out, we're not going to talk a lot about full incident working because a lot of it's similar. We're going to talk about 2 key differences, though, is that an incident task can be used to contact on-call groups. How many people get paged in the middle of the night sometimes? There's always someone. Yeah, this is important to you, of course. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to activate on-call and how to shut it off. And then down here, we're also going to talk about what is called parent incident functionality. This allows us to take a whole bunch of incident records and link them to one parent incident. That allows us to communicate out to many clients at once and also resolve all of those incidents at one time when service is restored. So we'll walk through both those scenarios just so you can get a handle on it. All right, back in our application navigator, we're going to go to the incident application and create new. I'll just put this out there for folks who are being fatigued already by all the records we're creating. I do recognize that's somewhat unnatural. I want to make sure we're all really comfortable with the system, though. So if you start fatiguing and stop clicking, I won't take it personally. Here we are in incident. Let's put in our required information. I'll keep picking on Catalyst because I do actually love it so. I'll put in my same caller. Just want to make a note. In incident, the assignment group is not auto-populated. And you'll note, if you don't put in an assignment group and you save this record, it's going to default to the UWIT Service Center, which is fine. They'll find it, and they will route it appropriately. So I just want to make a note of that. In this example, in my group, if we have an incident, we would actually manage it. So I'm going to put in my assignment group. I'd ask that you do the same, just so you can find your records for today. I'm going to assign it to myself so I don't lose it. Down in the short description, I'll put in escalation for Jake. And in the description, I'll say somebody should wake Jake up. And I'm going to save this record. So now if we've gone through that initial exercise, let's imagine this was an email from a customer that came into our assignment group, and someone at our help desk has decided, yep, we need to wake Jake up. Does that sound like a reasonable scenario? You guys might get something similar if you're an on-call group. All right. Up in the top right, we have the button for Create iTask. This is very much analogous to creating an R task. And if you remember that workflow I showed on the side, I could make several iTasks. The work notes will communicate amongst all the tasks and back to the incident record, just like request. We have a couple new options here. The work notes function the same, so I'll leave that. What we have here is a short description, and it's also noting the incident number. If you're actually going to activate on-call, you're going to want to make note of that and make this a little kinder if necessary. But I'll ask folks who do on-call to test this out. If you're doing voice activation, it's actually going to read this out aloud. So if you have a long IP address in the short description, some engineer is going to get that in their ear, and they're probably not going to be happy with you. So just keep that in mind if you ever activate on-call. OK. So I'm going to give a disclaimer here. Remember how I said no emails go out? That was kind of a lie. So the on-call system is actually live so people can truly test it. So I'll ask you to click along with me, but don't designate any on-call groups just playing around. That sound OK? You might wake up somebody who works the night shift, and they aren't going to be particularly happy. So we can all click on Contact On-Call. And here's where I'll ask you to watch for a second. If you did need to activate the on-call system and contact a team that's on a rotation, so that someone's going to be on call and it's going to rotate through who's actually on the hook, here's where you would go in and identify that group. And for those who actually get contacted, it's useful for you to know how they're going to do it. So for example, I'm a member of a training group. So if I hit OK, at that point, the on-call is going to be activated and start notifying people. So don't do what I just did. Is that OK? So that's how the COP staff, for example, in the middle of the night is going to identify the group that should be escalated to. They're going to turn the on-call system on, and it's going to start paging people. You also have another option, which is quite nice. You can contact a user. So if you know the individual who should be paged to restore service, it could be during hours or after hours, you can actually contact individuals. So in this example, I'm going to contact myself. And I'm going to hit OK. I'll ask that you not do that, though. You can contact yourself if you wish. OK. So I'll just save this. I'll point out a couple things that happened when I did that. The state was set to escalating. My own personal on-call rota was activated. And the active contact was checked. So all three of those critical elements were filled out for me. If I were to refresh this in another 30 seconds or so, it'll also show me as the on-call target, which means the system is actually paging me. If a rota or a rotation had been selected, it would go down the list, and the person who is currently being paged will always show as the on-call target. So you may not be on a team that gets paged in the middle of the night, but you might also realize, it'd be really cool if someone could text me if there was an emergency and I was out of the office. That makes sense? So even though this is primarily built out for people who are getting texted in the middle of the night, I'm actually going to have my team text me in the middle of the day and not in the middle of the night if they need me and I'm out of the office. That make sense? So it's useful. And I'll show you at the end how to actually activate the on-call for your devices when we set up our preferences. I'll hit save just because I want to see. Now you can see I wasn't lying to you. It's showing me as the on-call target. Often it works. Yeah, I got a text, so this isn't all smoke and mirrors. It truly does work. It'll actually page me twice unless I acknowledge it. Down in the log, you can see escalation started, and it will also log all emails sent. Everyone okay with that? Okay, so I'm going to go back now. I'm going to hit update and go back to the actual incident. I have this escalating task. I'm going to show you a new state. We have two states that weren't present in request. One is awaiting Tier 2 info, and the other is awaiting vendor. They both behave similarly, rather the same. I'm going to choose awaiting Tier 2 because it's applicable in this situation. And I'm going to hit save. OK, what's going to happen is this incident is going to stay in this state until the incident task is updated. Any update to the incident task is actually going to trigger this back or toggle it back to active. If you guys all stay on the incident for me here, I want to show you what that looks like to someone who's actually at the help desk. For example, if I'm working at the help desk and I've escalated it out or I'm COP staff waiting for a reply, I can see that my incident is sitting there awaiting Tier 2. I don't need to do anything with it because I'm waiting for an engineer to respond. As soon as the engineer goes in and acknowledges that and updates the incident task, this will immediately toggle back to active, and then I'm alerted visually to go check out that incident. Does that make sense? So even if you're only an escalation point, I want you to know what other people are going to see. I'll go back to everything updated by me. So I got my page. It actually tells me the incident task, so I can go to my browser and go address this. I'll put on my engineer hat and go into my incident task, and enter it. It also should have been in my work if I had assigned that incident task to me. All right, I can see this. It's the middle of the night or I'm on a bus somewhere. I log in. I can then stop the on-call notification system. And this would prevent the system from paging the next person on the list. That make sense? The time limit, that actually depends on the rotation schedule. I believe it'll just keep cycling until someone stops it. I'll just note, though, that anyone can stop it. So if you're being paged and you call COP staff, they could also turn off the system. Anyone can go in and turn it off. But the expectation would be that if you're being alerted, you're supposed to go here and turn it off so that you can see the important information and address it in this window. That make sense? I don't know anything about the actual, because your rotation can be set up to have different schedules and timing, and so that's going to be up to your personal preferences. All the current rotations have been imported in, and then you can edit them in production. I have to admit, though, the details of how to edit them are beyond me, but we'll have help documentation available so that you can edit them. Thanks. All good questions. OK, I can say, yep, rebooted. I'm going back to sleep. and I'll hit update. That sound okay? So I updated the task, and you can actually see that the incident itself was toggled back to active. Then as the help desk person, I scroll down, say, yep, rebooted. This is the communication from the engineer. Service restored. I now have the ability to resolve this incident. And, yeah, the engineer screwed up. That's fine. Resolve this incident and respond to the client. You'll notice at the top, though, this is actually really nice. It's exactly how it's designed to work. I don't have a resolve incident button. Anyone notice the absence of that? That's actually design behavior. You can't resolve an incident with an open incident task. So the engineer didn't actually close the incident task, so I can't resolve it. So, as you saw before, I could go in there, change the state of the task to closed, and once I save this, I then have my resolve incident button back. Does all that make sense? I should have pretended that I tried to do it that way, but that would be a lie. Okay, good. So we just did an escalation, activated on-call, we turned it off, communicated back, and have restored service. Everyone okay with this? Great. So I'd ask you guys to change your short description on this incident in the interest of time. Call this incident outage report number 1. We can save this. Great. Everyone have it altered? Often, our customers are not this helpful. They don't give us, exact descriptions, but we'll assume that our customer knows that they're the first person to report this outage. We have an active incident assigned to my group and assigned to me. Everyone okay with that? Let's update this and go back to our list. This brought me back to my filter that I had applied before, which is totally fine. Let's go back to your application navigator and create an additional incident. What we're going to walk through right now is the parent incident scenario. And I'm going to make a couple more incidents, so hopefully I don't fatigue you too much. I will put in the same configuration item. So I just clicked on New Incident. I'll put in the required information, Catalyst, caller, assignment group, and I'm going to assign it to me. Short description is going to be outage report number 2. And I will save. Everyone okay with that? So if you all click on your home page, if you remember to assign them to yourself, you should see both an outage report 1 and 2 in your list of work. Everyone who wants to be there with me there? Great. So imagine you're having a bad day. We don't have 2, but we have 20 or 200 outage reports. This is where we would want to create a parent incident and manage all of these together. We don't want to communicate with each and every one of our clients. Right now, I have my staff copy and pasting in responses to people and updating them and going through the list of 200. That is not fun work, and there are people in this room who can attest to that. So let's go in and now make, we'll take a break on that one. These 2 came from clients. Let's have a suspension of disbelief. We just received 2 outage reports from clients. As someone working at the help desk, we are going to create a new incident to manage those incident records. So if you could all click on Create New. We will again repetitively put in our required information. I made a small error. I don't want a client to be the caller here. Okay? I would recommend that a service manager or an incident manager would actually be the caller in this scenario. So I'll select my NetID as the caller in this scenario. You could have any incident become a parent incident, but we do formally recommend that you create a new incident to use as the parent. In the description, I'm literally going to type in parent and then outage report for Wednesday. I talked to Mike Houlihan, our incident process owner, and Richard Ortiz as well. They both recommend that you actually put the word parent in there. And as we're working this, you'll understand why that piece of advice is being placed there. So has everyone created this incident called parent? We haven't done anything to actually make it a parent. We're just putting the name in so far. All right. I'm going to update this and pop back to my incident records. I'm going to go back home. This is great. So I've got 2 here in my work. It seems like someone in the audience assigned a parent to me as well, which is fine. Want to throw me off? I can handle that. You can see I have outage report 1, 2, and I have the parent that I created. Everyone okay with that? Okay, so my goal here is to link these 2 or 200 outage reports to the parent. I'm going to highlight the text. I keep messing up my highlight on that one. I don't know why. Well, I see a 15353. I'm going to remember that number. Can you all look at your parent incident and memorize the number? Now I'm going to go into a child, an outage report 1. I'm going to make this a child incident. As you scroll down, you see a tab for related records. Under related records, I can actually go in and add additional fields. So I can go in and I can do 15353, do a search. Oh, it's supposed to be INC, sorry. I'll fix that. I can go 15353, and I can find it there. Everyone see me recover from that mistake? The initial search was contains. I can go number 15353 for my incident and find it. If I was able to copy that text, I usually can, but today I'm having bad copy karma. I could paste it in and assign it to that record. So this is what you would do if you were going through each incident report one by one and triaging them. I could actually go in and respond to the customer and address individual questions. I could assign the parent and tell them that we'll update them later. That make sense? So this, if I wanted to go through each one individually and triage. I'll click on Update. And here you have my work. And you can clearly see that outage report 1 is now linked to the parent outage report. No. So there's no way in this view to know that this incident called parent is actually linked to outage report number 1. Okay, remember way back in the beginning, I told you that if you filter on the task table, you can find all records. And so we are filtering on the task table here. That's a great thing, but there's one limitation. It's a technical limitation. It can't show you the parent incident field. So if you're actually working incidents and using a parent incident functionality, you shouldn't work them from this view. Does that make sense? So this may not affect a lot of you. You can then safely ignore my warning. Let's go down to My Records. And you can now see the My Groups Incidents filter. But also, if you look down here to My Groups Incidents, you can see all of the incidents in here in My Groups. And you can also see a parent incident field. So does everyone see them now? I've got some other ones, parent, outage report 1, and I've got parent. A lot of people doing the same thing, correct? So now, in this field, I can actually see if something is a parent or not. I think, yeah, down here, a lot of people are using the exact same examples as me and also using the exact same assignment groups, so it gets confusing for me. I apologize. If this were a cleaner example, you would only see my group stuff and not all your stuff as well. In order to illustrate that point, I'm going to go back to the incident application. and click on Assign to Me, this is a filter that's looking at all active incidents that are assigned to me. And now I can actually just see the ones that matter. That make sense? So that's just a little bit of trickery for the demo. But by and large, you should be able to look at your group's incidents and do that. The other fun way to do it is to click on My Group's Incidents if you want to follow along, because I like to teach you guys new tricks. And if you find your name in the Assign To field, you can right-click and Show Matching. So you can always drill down. If you have too much data in front of you, I've just done a quick filter on My Group's incidents to show those assigned to me. Everyone okay with that? Which is functionally equivalent to clicking down here to Assign to Me. Excellent. You can see now that I have associated outage report 1 with this parent, 15353. Everyone okay with that? Now I'm going to show you the second way then to associate a child incident with a parent. Remember the key combinations I taught you before? If you would all look at a list view with me here and hold Control and Shift, hold Control Shift together, you can click on multiple cells at the same time. You get a light blue hue. You guys all see that? And then if I double click, I have the ability to update multiple rows at one time. The other way I can do it is hold Windows and Shift, so a slightly different combination. I believe it depends on whether it's Windows 7 or 8. I can then highlight across multiple. So if they're contiguous, I can highlight 2 or 20 cells at one time and select them all. Everyone see that? I'm double-clicking on this one incident, and I can actually put in the parent incident number and update multiple cells at once. So I can actually go in and update one or more records in this fashion. So right now, I actually have this outage report 1 and 2 associated with this parent, which is 15353. Everyone okay with that workflow? So it's a bit of a time saver. All right. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to communicate to all these clients with an update, saying, hey, we're working on it. We're doing as much as we can. I'm going to click on the incident called parent. And now you can start seeing why it's really important that we keep track of the parent and why it's even worthwhile to use that term parent. Okay, here we are in the parent. When you first come in here, you can't immediately tell that it's a parent incident. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll notice next to the Incident Tasks tab, which we looked at before, you can also see Child Incidents, and that will show a list of all the incidents that have been associated with it in this child-parent relationship. Is that okay? Back up in our notes section, we can say, here's an update from the Service Center. And any additional comments made through the parent incident will propagate out through all child incidents. Additionally, you could just choose to update through the work notes, or you could also update the work notes to all these child incidents if you have other people working at other service desks that might benefit from a technical update. Again, the work notes would only go to the log of those incidents and not out to the customers. Everyone okay with that? We'll hit update. One nice thing about update, and as you use it more and more, I hope you come to rely on it. When I hit update, it took me back to wherever I was before. And that actually also includes a custom constructed filter. Remember, I looked at my group's incidents and then filtered down to those assigned to me. It retained that information and brought me back to that page, which is a useful workflow. So I don't expect you just to trust me. I'm going to go down to one of these child incidents and take a look at the activity log. If you go down there, you should see here's an update. So this was communicated out to the customers. And if I refresh this in another 30 seconds, it will show you the formatted email that was sent out to the customers. Everyone okay with that? Great. Let's go back up to our parent. You guys have almost earned a break. You're doing great. You've definitely earned a break, but you're almost there. I'm going to go back to the parent. and I've decided that this incident is resolved. We've restored service. So let's say service now restored. And I can click on the resolve button knowing I'll be asked to provide some additional information. Closure information. I have a close code and notes. The incident process owner requires us to provide both close code and close notes whenever resolving an incident. We desire more data on that. So everyone ready to resolve? All right. So what you can see in my view here is that all three of those incidents are now absent from my view because my filter isn't showing resolved incidents, and they're also no longer assigned to me. So they're out of sight, out of mind. I resolved them. Everyone okay with that workflow? It might not be necessary for you, but you might decide 6 months from now, oh, wait, we could actually use this. So I want to make sure everyone is exposed to that. All right. You guys have all deserved a break. So we've completed incident management, escalation, and parent incident functionality. We are going to talk about problem only briefly. So just to reiterate, a problem record is separate from an incident. The goal of incident management is to restore service as quickly as possible and resolve those incidents. What I'll show you how to do is how to create a problem record from an incident so you can capture data and investigate it at a future date. You also can just go to the problem application, as you can see in the top right here, and click Create New if you want to create a problem from scratch. But I'll show you how to make it from an incident so you can check it out. So I have in here a few incidents. If you guys click on the EW Connect logo and load your work, does anyone still have active incidents? If not, you can always go down to Incident, All, and grab something if you wish. Not always the most reliable way to find an incident for this example, but it should work. All right, I'm going to go into one of my incidents, and I'm going to right-click on this gold bar and pull up my context menu. I can show you that I've chosen a bad incident for this example, and I'll clean that up for you right now. We'll go down to the Related Records tab, and you'll notice that I've already linked this incident to a problem, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, pretend you didn't see that. If you right-click on the gold bar or the context menu, if this has not yet been created into a problem or converted, you can click the Create Problem option. Has everyone found an incident where you can do that? And again, if you don't have that option, it means that it's already been associated with a problem. So what we're going to do is right-click and select Create Problem. The upside of the demo I just showed you is that it illustrated that whenever I create a problem from an incident, it automatically populates that problem field. So I can find out if an incident is linked to a problem. So what is copied over here is some of the information, the configuration item. I do need to put in an assignment group. The assumption would be that this is a Tier 2 engineering group, or a group that the service manager has designated to investigate problems in the future. Kind of a rainy day concept where, oh yeah, we have a little bit of money, let's investigate some of our problems and try to actually fix the root cause of them. You scroll down here, I can see some of the information that was copied over. And at the very bottom, I have a tab which lists the incidents that have been linked to this problem. So since I created a problem from an incident, it's automatically created that linkage. And what I might do is communicate to my team that I have a problem I'm tracking and give them the problem number and let them know if they run into an incident that matches that, they should link it up every time. And that way, over time, when I'm tracking this problem, I can see each and every occurrence of when someone has linked an incident to it. Does that make sense? If I'm working this problem, I could also click on the very bottom again, Incident tab. I can click on Edit. If you click on New, by the way, that would literally create a new incident. I'll click on Edit. Oops. Small mistake. I'm going to save this record. I forgot to do that. If you guys were following literally, you can right-click and save and go back down. I can click on Edit. And now I actually have the ability to search amongst all the incidents and find those that would like to link to this problem. That make sense? I could choose other fields to search on if I really want to go through and do it that way as well. But I could grab any other incident and add it over if I have a list of incidents to associate with it. That make sense? That's one way to create this list and associate them with that. The other way is to copy the problem number. And I could go down, and let's say I found an old incident. And I click on it. I'm just going to go grab someone's. Under the Related Records tab, right next to Parent Incident, which I already showed you, I could paste in a problem. And by doing that, I will associate with a problem, and it'll be tracked over time. That make sense? Overall, the concept is quite simple. The problem is designed to persist until you have the time to discover the root problem of it. And the goal of problem resolution is to prevent future incidents. So incident resolution may be that, oh yeah, we had to apply for a new certificate, and then the outage was restored, or service was restored. But the overall problem might be, hey, why aren't we tracking these server or these certificate expirations? We need to figure out the problem and the underlying cause. That make sense? So you may find other problems in your world that are more mundane. I can think of several where I would like to track the root cause over time, and this is a way to link your records. That's all I really wanted to demo in problem. Anyone have any questions about that? Okay. Just basic problem control, not full-fledged problem management. Okay, home pages. This is the fun part. You've slogged through all the hard stuff. We are going to make a custom home page for you. Right now, we've given you a default home page that shows all of your work and your group's incidents, requests, and tasks. Let's say you've seen all of this and decided, you know what, I'd like to have all of my records in one big bucket. I don't like the way you guys have split it up by default. We can show you how to fix that. If you could all go back to Connect and click on the UW Connect logo. Everyone on the home page with me? So you see, having my work at the top is generally pretty useful, so I can see all the records I've been assigned. This is telling me everything I have to do. I'm going to retain that. There are numerous ways to edit a home page, but I'll just walk you through the process of deleting content you don't want. So if you scroll all the way to the right, do you see these little X's? So you can keep my work and click on an X to delete content you don't want. I keep forgetting this, but I'll show you right now so I don't forget. You can also reorder things. So your home pages are quite editable if you want to change the order after you've created them. I'll delete that. So what I've now created is a new version of the home page, and it's automatically called My Home Page. That's not particularly helpful to call it My Home Page. What I'd like for you to do is change the name, and there's a little trick for doing that, though. Please click on the refresh button or refresh your browser. You want to make sure you refresh it before you change the name. And then you can do that. So I can just highlight the text and change the name. I find that refresh is required for the name change to stick. That's why I insist that you do that. So now you can see I've got my original home page, and by altering and renaming, I've actually versioned one for myself, and it's distinct. So I didn't actually damage the default home page. You can make as many home pages as you want. Just keep in mind, whenever you click on the UW Connect logo, it's always going to take you back to the last page you had selected, not back to home page. That make sense? Okay. So we all have something that's slightly modified and renamed? Good. There are a lot of things you can add to a home page. By far the most useful at this point is going to be filters. So I'm going to show you how to construct a custom filter and how to add it to this home page so you can see a different slice of your data whenever you come here. That sound okay? So let's go back to unassigned work. So my records, unassigned work. This is a pretty good starting point. I'm going to drop down so I can expose my filter builder here. Everyone caught back up with me? Now, I'll just point out that depending on your workflow, this is actually a pretty good starting point. For example, some groups don't want to see a record if someone's been assigned to it. So this filter is useful. They only want to show records where where the assigned to is empty. In my group, I would like to see all records regardless of whether or not someone has been assigned to a record. Does that distinction make sense? So you can choose anything you want. I'm going to delete this qualification where it says assigned to is empty. And if you read this filter now, it shows all active records. And you can see I'm on the task table. So this will find all incidents, problems, and requests and tasks. It won't show parent incident, right? We understand the limitation of the task table now. But at least it'll show everything in one bucket. It'll show where the assignment group is dynamic. When you choose is dynamic, it's one of my groups. But I could choose a single assignment group if I wish as well. Right? Some people are used to watching one queue at a time. You could also have a single assignment group if you wish. We'll leave this here for now. And state is not one of these. The reason why this is added in here is so that you don't see records that are resolved. So this third element doesn't show you resolved records. Otherwise, it would. That make sense? Okay. So instead of pinning this as we had done before, we're all going to click on the Save button. I now have the ability to save this as something intelligent. I'll call it all of my records. A small note, if you save filters with the exact same name, they're going to disappear. So if you're playing around, you saw me increment to 3 there. I try to remember that I've had something with a very similar name before. Just note that you can save it just to yourself. You could also save it to your group. Do you remember that one caution I gave you before? That if you save this to a group, everyone can see, edit, and delete this filter. So please play nicely. I'll just hit save for right now. And here I am. Everyone okay with that save procedure? One thing that throws people is that when you click on save, there's a second save to the right. You have, don't click on the top save, click on the other save. Everyone okay with that? Great. So you say, Jake, I just saved a filter. How do I use it? A couple ways. I'll make a mental note. I actually had saved this filter against the task table. That's how I created it. So anytime I'm viewing the task table, I can click on that menu and access my filters. You guys all see that? So by clicking on tasks, filters, I can access them. So if I have tons and tons of filters, that's going to be a common way to actually access them. That make sense? If you are fortunate enough to be on an iPad, this is going to be by far the most common way because you can't pin filters over here on your Power Edge, or you can't see them. So you would actually tap on the table, tap filters, and tap the filter you'd like to use. That make sense? Great. If you're making lots and lots of filters, you might find that in the My Records application, clicking on a filter is going to show you all the filters that you have either made or have been shared with your group. One limitation of this view, though, is that you can't actually execute filters from this list. So if I click on it, it's going to take me to the filter, not to the results of the filter. So people are frustrated by that. If I want to run the filter, I'll go back, task, filter, run filter. That make sense? Good. OK, so we've all made a semi-useful filter, and we would love to see the results of that filter on our home page. So let's click on the UW Connect logo, reload what is now our custom home page. You have the ability to add content here in the top left. I've had to learn to be patient with this particular procedure. Okay. In here, I hope you all see a 3-pane window. And in this first pane, there are a lot of things you can add to your home page. I have found very few of those to be useful. I hope it's okay that I'm candid about that. If you scroll to the very bottom, you're going to see the filters option. And here's where all of my harping about the tables actually pays off. You're going to know that to find the particular filter you just made, you would click on task and not on request or other subsets. And with any luck, you can scroll through this list and find all of the filters you've made or have been shared with you. So I have all of my records 3. Is everyone able to click and find something useful? This shows the real-time results of that. And if you take a look at my screen, you can kind of see that my work is apparent behind this pop-up. And I have 4 positions I could stick my new filter on that screen. Since my work is in the top position, I'm going to choose this bottom option, which will put it on the bottom and full screen width. Does that make sense? I'll put it below my records. So add here on the bottom. Sorry, my... Here.
I'm sorry, why are there 4 the blank catalog, mobile, and portable?
Oh, yeah, those are going to be different versions of it. They'll be more compact. So you can experiment with them. I've always just used the non-catalog portal mobile. Yeah. Everyone okay with this? If I had multiple filters to add, I could keep selecting and placing them. That's why my window is still present here. Since I'm done for now, I'm just going to click on this X and make it go away. So, just wanted to point out, we've essentially constructed 2 views of the world. On the default home page, you have, that was a little slow. I have to learn to be patient. On the default home page, you have my work, followed by my group's incidents, my group's requests, and my group's tasks. On the one we've just created, you've got my work, followed by one big bucket, which represents all 3 of those other filters that were on the original home page. Does that make sense? It's a great way to kind of think this through and test your knowledge of the system. So you can choose what you prefer. You could also prefer, if you prefer, you could, instead of following assignment groups, you could be following services, right? You may not be in a fulfillment group. You may be a service manager and may want a home page that displays all the records that have been opened against a particular configuration item or service offering. Does that make sense? So you have a lot of flexibility when you do this. Any questions? All right. If you decide you don't like this home page, the very bottom right, you can delete it. And of course, just like I said before, don't spend a ton of time with all kinds of cool home pages in eval. Build them in production if you want them to persist. Okay. Reports. How many people are excited about reports? Can't even suppress the energy. Good, good. People are. I have to admit, I've actually enjoyed the reports segment of this. So I can't teach you everything you need to know about reports. That would probably be a 3-hour workshop, and I wouldn't be qualified to teach it. I'll admit that. But I have played around a bunch with them, and I'm really pleased with what you can do. So I'll show you the results of that so you can get started in this. So if you could all look in your application navigator, you'll hopefully be comforted by the fact that we've gone through almost all these tabs. So there's a lot of stuff in here, but hopefully you understand quite a bit of it. Let's click on Reports. And you can then click on View Run. When you launch this page, you'll note that there are a lot of reports available out of the box. The left-hand side is a list of all the available global reports. Those are kind of pre-canned or canned and pre-configured reports. If you were to open any of these and edit them, you would essentially version it, and it would show up over in My Reports. Okay? So you can't really damage any of these global reports. You can just edit them and version them and make them your own. If you were then to share a report with a group, it would show up under Group Reports. And if you edit a group report, remember, it's visible to everyone in the group if you edit it. Everyone okay with that? Great. So if you would all start off with me, go on the far right and down under group reports. Do you see this my group records in the last 2 months? So look, scroll down. You'll see that there are a lot of entries there. That's because there are a whole bunch of people who don't follow directions. But that's okay. It's eval. We're having fun here. Okay, you can see the results of me clicking around and having fun for 2 or 3 hours and trying to build a useful report. I'm not very good at reading instructions. All I did was go in here and change a bunch of parameters until I found something that looked good to me. And surprisingly, it actually worked. So if you were to scroll down, you can see what is a report that displays 2 months' worth of data on a week-by-week breakdown. It shows all of the records in all of my assignment groups split out by assignment group. So this is what my manager used to say, let me know what our ticket data looks like. What's our volume like? And I don't have to write reports anymore. He can just go look at them for himself. Sadly, he's no longer my manager, but that's irrelevant. If I were to click on any of these elements, it will take me to the database search and show the query that actually constructed that as well. So this is an interactive report as well. That make sense? You can see over time an uptick in record generation. The last couple weeks, we've actually begun training. So you can see a lot of people using Catalyst as an example and following along with me. It's kind of a fun trend. I apologize, Tom, if you're following along. OK, so you say, well, that's an OK report, but I'd like to tweak that. I don't want to learn how to do everything. I want to tweak your report, Jake. Here's what you can do. If you go back and look, I'll just note that you could edit it and save, but that would actually save the version that's shared with everyone. I don't recommend that. What I'd like you to do is take a look at this visible to field, and you can see why everyone can see it, because it's available to this idle group, which is everyone. If you change that to me, you could now click on Save, which would essentially take it away from the group. I've edited the group report. I've taken it away from everyone. It's available only to me. That would be kind of selfish. I want to point out that you could change the name and all that stuff. That would still change the name of what was once a group report. There is a ServiceNow-ism that you need to learn if you're going to be working with these types of records. It's called insert. So if you were to click on insert, it would actually insert a new copy of this report. And since you've made it visible only to you, you could essentially take a version of it, make it visible only to you, and you could tweak it. That make sense? So I find that taking a canned report or a shared report that you like and find useful and tweaking it is a much better use of your time. That make sense? OK, so you guys can hit insert if you want a copy of this in your records. Thank you for following instructions, everyone. Then went insert. Please note, though, that this is not in production. I'll probably take a look at these parameters, take a snapshot, go over to production, and produce a copy as well, because I'd like to keep this report in the future. I don't have any export mechanism that I know of. You'll notice that I can also schedule this report. So I could have this run on a nightly basis. I could email it out to people if they want status reports, or export to a PDF. A lot of fun stuff like that. Back on reports, I'd like to show you where I started from that report, but not how I built it. As you scroll down here, you'll notice that we have a lot of reports. It's perhaps more than we need. I started from the task category, and I chose my group's work. So I just took a generic report that wasn't particularly pretty. And if you look at it, it actually just shows you a database view. And I started playing around with the visualizations from there. That make sense? On the note of reports, I'm going to pull up a list view of the database. So I went back to my records, my group's requests. Any list view of the database can also be a report. So if I did a filter of the data to kind of drill down and find some relevant records, you could right-click on any header, export. You'll also notice I can make a bar chart or a pie chart, but I could export this to Excel. Anyone who's tried to get data out of RT is really going to appreciate this. So I can go in and essentially construct a bar chart from any view of the data. So the report seems awfully formal, but if you understand how the system works, you can generate some useful reports on the fly. Make sense? Any questions about reports? Have fun with them. I really hope that in a few weeks you know way more than me and you can come back and teach me how to use them. We are ready to go into production. You guys feel ready? Great. Okay. So what we're going to do is go in and change our notification preferences. Our on-call rotas have already been imported. All we have to do is go back to your URL and delete eval. Just as a side note, eval is always going to be there for you. Even after we are in production, you can always come back here and experiment without having to worry about sending out emails. Emails are live in production. So if you're playing around, you're going to be sending emails. Don't screw around too much. All that teaching that I did, showing you how to right-click on the gold bar, of course, was for naught. And we now have to right-click on blue bars. Is everyone refreshing and getting blue bars across the screen? Great. The most important place to start here is to go and click on your name. So here it says, welcome, Jake. I'll click on myself. Here you can edit your information, your contact information if you wish. And let's all click together on our notification preferences. So hopefully you don't have as many set as mine here. I'm probably going to have to turn a few of these off in the future. If you could all click on primary email with me. You don't want them. Yeah. If you are in the work notes list or you're a customer on the customer list, you're going to get an email whenever there's an update. That's primarily what we want anyway. But you can check out the additional options if you're interested. Just make sure that your email address is correct. If you put in multiple entries, I'll just note that this order doesn't work. So don't try to adjust that so that it goes out in different orders. And if you wish to be contacted via the on-call escalation, this is the checkbox you would check. So if you do this and someone were to escalate an incident task to you, it would email you that task. Does that make sense? So if you want to, if you're an escalation point, if you do on-call, make sure you have on-call method selected.
So if you don't have any notification preferences,
I've seen different people with different defaults, and I can't actually explain why some people have fewer than others. But none is fine too. Yeah, none is great. If you are on a list of people on the work notes list or the customer visible watch list, you're going to get an email anyway. Or if you're a customer, you will get an email anyway. I have a lot by default. Some people have a few. Some people have none. I should ask Joby. I'm going to click on New Device in the top right. So right now I have a single primary email. I'll click on New Device. I could choose different email addresses as a notification preference or a mechanism. You can choose voice. And if you did that and someone were to escalate to you, it actually would play you a message and leave you a recording of your incident task. The one I've chosen is SMS. So I put in my own phone number. And that way, if I'm an escalation point, it would actually text me. So in eval, to do my demo, I put in my phone number, selected a provider, and you can select any provider. It doesn't matter which. And you can choose an on-call method. And that's how I was able to text myself whenever I was escalated to. So if you are an on-call person, make sure you have your devices in here. Google Voice also works. So if you have a Google Voice number, you can just choose any service provider and the phone number, and you can choose it as SMS or voice. Everyone okay with that? Excellent. I'll cancel out because I want to keep mine blank for now. That is the bulk of what I wanted to cover. Now, just a few minutes at the end here, I'd like to show you what our customers are going to see. So I did mention that every time they get an email, they're going to get a link back to our portal. And this is going to take them to IT Connect. For us, it might sound a little bit confusing that our UW Connect data will be displayed through IT Connect. But I can assure you our customers don't care. They're going to know about IT Connect. They're going to come here for all of their information, including updates on outages and their service requests. So they don't know the name UW Connect, and they don't care. You'll also notice that everything is being called a request, regardless of whether it's an incident or a request. Again, the distinction is lost on them. They would just want us to restore service. So they'll come and see their requests. They get a visual indicator of the status. You can see the green bars for active. If they were to click on an individual request for status, they can get a little additional information: when it was opened, when it was last updated. Here is where the most recent version of the description will be displayed. So if we update the description on the record itself, and as soon as that record is committed, it will instantaneously be displayed here, even if it wasn't emailed out to them. This will be the entire comment history, and there's also a window at the bottom for them to reply back to us. Again, they could also respond to the email itself, but they can always go to the IT Connect portal and respond back to us via this mechanism. Any questions about that? Okay. Thank you for staying awake. A couple dates. One of them is today. So some folks are working in UW Connect right now, and they're hardy souls who are working in UW Connect and RT simultaneously. I thank them for that. July 8th for most of us, and July 15th for CTE on the cutover dates. Additional documentation is available online. I do want to stress that. If you click in the little help icon, so I have a question mark in the top right. I'm stuck in my window here. If you click on that question mark, you're going to find a lot of help articles that were written for us. We'll also have some training documents, and I'll put up training videos, likely a link to one of the videos I provided. So if you want to get a recap and not attend another training session, you can do so. Any questions?
Can you just do a little plug on the
So I'll just reiterate for those who couldn't quite hear. We're looking at the IT Connect portal, and this is showing us a real-time view of all incidents that have an impact of 1 or 2. So any incident with an impact of 1 or 2 will automatically be displayed here, so customers have a real-time update of our service status. Is that correct?
And then fortunately we have a whole bunch of those are switches, those 7-digit
Yeah.
numbers.
These are all
And-
test data, not...
Yeah, we're going to have those filtered out.
Okay, great.